Hi. Hey, welcome to Steph's World. This is chapter 51. And it's been a while since I've done this. There's reasons for it. I've had an awful lot going on in my life lately. I'm trying to get my home remodeled. And, I live in Savannah. Oh boy. If you meet the right people, you're in luck. But you gotta meet those people first, okay? And I've been here almost 2 years and I'm just beginning to meet those people. I had already started this video and this one of the guys called that I need help with on one of my items on my list of remodeling stuff. And it's Sunday. And he calls me out of the blue. It's Sunday. Well, I'm just not used to that. I'm used to living in a much bigger city, and they have lots of people working for them, and they have a regular, gigantic, organization, and I'm just simply not used to this. And I thought I was, but I'm not. So, maybe this experience will finally get me used to it. Now, one thing I am kind of used to is how slow everything is. I mean, when they work. When they're doing the job, they're working normal speed. But when they communicate with you, it's slow. Now, don't take me wrong, any of you from Savannah. Do not take me wrong. All I'm saying is I ain't used to it. I'm just simply not used to it, okay? When I lived in Dallas, Fort Worth, it was very similar. It really was. But I have to admit that Dallas was a much bigger city. And actually, we lived in the Fort Worth side, but it was a much bigger city. And, it was a little easier. The scorpions weren't all that fun, but it was a little easier. Of course, frankly, I haven't been afraid of too much in my life, so even when we had scorpions on our ceiling, I had my little babies crawling on the floor, I just killed them anyway. But got the babies out of the way and killed the son of the guns. That's just who I am. Can't figure it, but that's who I am. Okay? That's who Steph is. I'm the kind of person that believes in protecting myself, that I have every right to do so, and I'll go and do it by any means I have to. Believe me, I will. Disabled or not, I will protect myself. And, that's just who, like I said, that's who I am. Now, let's talk about that disability thing. First of all, I have a degree in computer science, okay? I went to a couple of different colleges to finally get it. And part of the time that I went there, it was under two different names too. So if you look under Russell, you're not going to find it. Okay? They were under different married names. But that's not important. What is important is that I went to school after I had 3 children. That's a miracle right there. Here's another miracle. At one school I had a 3.7. At the other school I had a 3.8. Pretty good, huh? And you know that I didn't even realize how good that was. I had no idea. All I was trying to do was just get through school, get a job, support my babies. With all the stuff that I had gone through before I went to school, with living with two of my children's father, going through the nightmare that I went through, I was just happy just to find a decent job so that I could give my children a wonderful life. That was my whole objective. And as it turned out, I found out that I loved working with computers. I loved it. Okay, now, I'm going to tell you what happened on the first experience here. I think you need to know. When I was 17, I was already graduated from high school. I graduated early. My birthday was late in the year. And back then, you know, in these days, it would have been a whole nother year before I would have graduated. But back then, I started kindergarten at 4 years old. That's not unusual. A whole bunch of us did. Now, I graduated from high school in 1971, so figure that one out, okay? Think you can figure out the age from there. Anyway, but I was 17 when I graduated. And, you know, I probably would have graduated earlier if some things hadn't happened to me when I was in high school, but we're not going to get into that today. Okay, now, I married this man. He was a friend of a whole bunch of biker guys that I hung out with, all right? They rode Harleys. I don't think I knew anybody till much later that didn't ride a Harley, okay? I knew all about Harleys. I knew all about how you got to take care of them. Now, I don't think some of these riders today understand all of what I know, because I don't think they take care of them quite the same way. I think they let other people do that job for them. But the men that I hung out with, and when I had a Harley, I had to know how to change the oil. I had to know how to wipe that sucker down, clean it up, oil it up, everything. Everything. And I also had to know how to take care of a car. And that sure did come in handy several times in my life. So in some ways, I was a mechanic, I was a biker mechanic, you know, I knew a lot about all of those men things, you know. That was a good thing, as it turned out. Okay, now, there was a reason why I got married so young. I had no desire to get married, none whatsoever. My future husband at the time was the one who wanted to get married. Why? I have no idea. I said, why don't we live together? Well, that wasn't good enough for him. He wanted to be married. Okay, so 3 weeks after I turned 18, we got married. And I planned the whole thing. I did everything. It was a very nice wedding. I had a beautiful dress. I even have pictures of all of it. My parents seemed okay with it. My dad was worried about it. And he was upset because I was a child that he wanted to go to college. He couldn't figure out why this very smart child of his was getting married of all things. He had been prepping me for college from the time I was a little teeny tiny girl. And if you start reading my books, you'll find out why he had been doing that. So he was a little bit disappointed, but you know what? He loved me. He did love me, and he wanted me to be happy. So I married this man, and you know, my mother is part Native American. I'm going to tell you right now, she was good at telling when somebody was full of crap. She had a talent. And she knew when someone was not the real person. She knew. But my first husband, he played the Mr. Nice Guy game with her so good, she did not figure it out. It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I figured out of anybody, she would have figured it out, but she didn't. He had her snowed too. But not later. Anyway, what happened was 3 weeks after we got married, something ridiculous occurred. It was nothing for anyone to get mad about. I even was kind enough to leave him a note and let him know that my girlfriend and I were at the movies. I think we went to see Love Story, of all things. I had a horrible feeling inside as we sat at the theater. I mean, a horrible feeling. Just terrible. I didn't enjoy the movie. She was my good friend. I went to high school with her. So we got back to my place, which was all in walking distance, by the way. You know, when you live in the suburbs of Chicago, you live in your own little neck of the woods, and, you know, you can even just walk to where you need to go. And if you can't, your drive is about 10 minutes at the most if you don't hit Saturday traffic, okay? That's how it used to be. And we had neighborhood bars. And neighborhood bars let the wives in who weren't old enough to drink. That's just the way it worked. The cops didn't care, okay? It was a neighborhood bar, period. Okay, now, I said goodbye to my friend, and we noticed that my husband at the time was all wrapped up, real uncomfortable looking, like in his leather jacket on the couch. And it was about 11, right around that time. So, I told my friend to go ahead and leave and I'd take care of him. And I tried to get him out of his jacket so he'd be a little more comfortable. I wasn't going to do anything more, just get him out of the jacket. Big mistake. Terrible mistake. The minute that I started moving him, he woke up, or came to, shall we say. And next thing you know, I was on the floor with fists punching my face so much that, you know, it was so quick. He was punching me so fast that I didn't have time to get my hands I didn't even know where to put my hands to try to protect my face. I had no idea where to put them. He was so fast at punching. It was unbelievable. Even today, if I were, body built and everything, I wouldn't even want to get in a fight with this man. He was unbelievable. Just unbelievable. Okay, now, while he was beating the crap out of me, he told me that he was going to kill me. Now, he wasn't kidding. Not at all. And I'm going to cut this as short as I can. He broke my neck, and but in the meantime, I tried to run and jump out of the second story window because I didn't care. I just flat didn't care. I had to get rid of this man. I had to get him off of me. He was going to kill me. And it never occurred to me, oh, by the way, if you run out and jump out of a two-story window, you'll probably break your neck then too. I didn't care. The man was beating me to death. And I guess, in a way, I would rather just jump out the window and take care of business that way than to be beaten to death like that. I weighed 105 pounds. And this man was not that big, actually, but he sure was a lot stronger than me. So anyway, bottom line is he broke my neck. Neck was out to here, swollen. It was black. He had broken every blood vessel. He had ripped it open with his bare hands. I had blood just spewing out. And he ripped something else on me, and I can't even remember what that was, but basically, any clothes I was wearing that was still left on me were full of blood. I was just full of blood, bloody mess. Now, in order to make him stop, I pretended I was dead. I just pretended. I couldn't take it anymore, so I was gonna be dead if he continued. So I just played dead like a possum. It worked. He went in the bedroom, he laid down, and I think he passed out. And I gave him about 10 minutes before I started moving. Okay? Well, it worked. The man was asleep or something. So I managed to crawl out of there, and the police station was a half a block away, and I managed to drag my body to the police station, and I just barely got my hand up to the door like this, trying to knock on the door. It had a glass thing on it. And there was a woman in there, and she saw me. And you got to remember, I didn't even know what I looked like, but it was pretty bad. And when she took one look at me, she had already called an ambulance. She didn't waste any time at all. She called an ambulance. The police thought that I might die from this. They weren't sure whether or not I was going to live. They really weren't. In the ambulance, they tried to get some information from me, and the most I could tell them was it was my husband. And that's about the most I could get out. And they got my name, and we didn't have a phone yet, because we'd only been married 3 weeks. Well, anyway, and by the way, I had a great job. A really great job. But I was on parole, because I'd only been on the job about 6 months. I just got it since I got out of high school. Well, sad to say, what he did to me, leaving all my face pulverized, one eye was closed shut for 3 weeks. I lost a job. That was gone. Great job was over with. So anyway, now these people that I work for, today they're AT&T. Too bad I couldn't have stayed with them. Man, who knows where I would have been. Plus, I would have gone to school too, and because I did go to school. Well, to make matters worse, I was a very dumb young girl, or ignorant, or naive, shall we say. And I had married him, so, till death do us part. And I really took that to truth here. It was important to me. It really was. I had parents that stayed married, and, I just couldn't imagine leaving my brand new husband. And the doctors were telling me, good Lord, he is going to kill you if you don't leave him. And they were right. They were absolutely right. Now, I'm not going to tell you all the terrible things that happened after that. He was remorseful for about 2 weeks, and then it went away. And the next time he beat me, he focused on everything below the neck, okay? So that all my marks were on my lower part of my body. And at that point, I did manage to call the police because we had a phone. Well, he was out in the car getting it set up so that both of us would die from carbon monoxide poisoning. He was going to kill both of us, not just me. Now, that's craziness. Okay? That's sick. Very sick. Now this time I did try to get away from him. And he found me. And I went out of the state. But he found me. And he took me back to the Chicago area. And I didn't have a job, and he didn't have a job, and he kept me a prisoner of war, and that's how I phrase it, because that's darn well how it was. There's no other way to put it. I could have no communication with my family. I was not allowed any communication with my friends. I was under his scrutiny at all times. And I got beaten almost every single day. Almost every single day. And at night, he would threaten me with this hatchet. And he'd take it upstairs with us, and he would tell me, this could be it. And by that, he meant, this could be it, that I'm going to cut your head off. And frankly, all of us believed it. Me, his mother, and the stepfather. They were afraid of him as much as I was. That's why they didn't do anything to help me. They knew he was doing a terrible thing to me, but there wasn't anything they felt that they could do. They knew that if they did anything, they would suffer repercussions. Well, there's a miracle here. I got away. One day, he decided to go to the park, and I feigned illness, and he believed me. He believed me. And I don't know if he really was putting on an act and really wanted me to do what I did or what, but I did. I didn't waste any time. I called one of my relatives and I said, help me, help me, help me. This man is going to absolutely kill me. And they already knew that I wasn't allowed to talk to my family. So my aunt called my father and said, get over there right now because your daughter needs to get away. So my dad called me and he said, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Be ready. Don't worry about your clothes. Don't worry about your belongings. Just get in the car. So I did. I did. But in doing so, I did lose some very precious things that were given to me when my best friend died when I was a teenager. They were very precious. But my life was more precious. So I did exactly what my dad said. He got in the car. I didn't see this man ever again. I divorced him very early in life. It was like a bad dream. And of course I had issues from the experience that I lived through because, trust me, he beat the living crap out of me every single day. The cops came one time because of my girlfriend, and I had to tell the police to go away because if I didn't and they put him in jail, he'd just be out the very next day and he would do doubly tough. It would be doubly hard on me. Here's the good news. No kids. Wouldn't that have been terrible if I would have had any children? My goodness. Whew. No children. Okay, so that was how my neck got broken. That's a pretty bad experience. I was only 18. Now, back then, they just left it, okay? They braced it, but that was it. They didn't do anything more with it, okay? Especially back then. They had no idea what to do with spinal cord injuries that you survived. And I survived it. And the reason I did was because I was young. My body was still actually growing into adulthood. I was extremely limber. And that saved my life. Otherwise, I would have had a tube the rest of my life, however long I would have lived. That's what it would have been. But now, over the last, in the last, 2004 was my last spinal operation. I had one every year for 4 or 5 years. In my last one, they fused the last one up here they could. And not the very last one they could, because once they do that, I'll be in the nursing home and I ain't going into no damn nursing home. And then they fused all the way down into my T-spine, thoracic spine. Now, that's a difficult thing to do, but when you get in the top edge of it, it's not so hard. I have metal from here all the way down. So, if I look like I'm just can't move, it's because I can't. Okay, now, I broke my lower back years later. Okay? Now, when I did that, it wasn't long. I'd say about a year and a half later, it was doctor time. Serious doctor time. Time to get things fixed. Time to get things worked on. So I did. Now, I kept working. Had a degree in computer science, and I loved it. I loved my job. I loved it. I was a project manager by the time 2004 rolled around. I was in charge of new programming that was going to replace stuff that I had actually written or things that were, new to the bank. But it was areas of the bank that I understood how they worked. And the type of programs we bought, we were allowed to get into the actual programming part. So I could find problems that were there and bring them up to the manufacturer, and they would send one of their programmers out, and we'd work together on it. Okay? And so anyway, then there was another program that I continuously supported, and I won't get into that one, but it was extremely important. And I worked for a bank for almost 12 full years. So that's another little piece of the pudding. Now, banks don't usually pay that much, but the programmers and the project managers, yeah, they paid us because they found out that, oh, well, we can get a job over here, but pretty quick. And that they found that out the hard way. They really did. So anyway, we got pretty good pay. We got what they call normal pay scale for what we were doing at the bank. Okay, now getting on with my life. That's just a little bit of what's going on and what's happened to Steph. When I started all these operations, deep down in my heart, I knew that my life was going to change. I knew it. I knew that things were never going to be the same. But I'll tell you one thing that I was so happy about. There was a time in my life when I had to leave my ex-husband, my other ex-husband, who was the father of two of my children. One who passed away recently because he was a master sergeant and he was head of the medevac unit in a helicopter. He's my pride and joy. He really is. In so many ways. But anyway, so they were children then. I mean, very small. My daughter was a baby. 2 years. Well, she was about ready to turn 2 years old. But I had to leave him. He was beating me. I have a second husband beating me. 8 years or 7 years after I left the other one. Good Lord, what is this now? It's unbelievable. 7 or 8 years later and I'm in the same boat again. I mean, I had no idea. I never expected this man to even do that, but he did. Now, I'm not going to get into why, but I have some thoughts on that, and I think I know why. And today, we know we can never live together. We're so far away as far as personality-wise goes. We know there's no way in God's green earth we could live together, okay? We just couldn't. But to make amends to me years later, after our children were grown and he had kind of disappeared out of our lives, he was in and out. He wasn't totally gone, but he wasn't the father that I think my children wished he would have been. Today I think he is to my daughter. Now my oldest son, that's a whole nother story, and I'm not going to get into that today either. Okay, so anyway, I had to get away from him. And I was in a beat up Gremlin X. It was a fast little car, I'll tell you that. I didn't like slow cars. I was used to riding motorcycles and stuff, and I liked fast cars. Well, anyway, this car would break down periodically. So I'd have to fix it. There wasn't anybody around, except occasionally I'd meet someone out on the road with my two little kids in the car, sitting in the car waiting for mommy to get, push down the thing and get it fixed. My children were so lucky they had a mother who knew how to do this. They really were. They really were. So anyway, I didn't know everything, but I certainly learned. And, I figured out when things weren't plugged in right or weren't set up right or whatever. And I knew how to change the oil. That was easy. But, personally, I preferred to have someone else do it if I could. But anyway, the point is that it wasn't an easy time when I left this man who fathered two of my children. And we were on the road. And we went to Kansas City, and we had no place to sleep at night. We had a place to go during the day, but we had no place to sleep at night. So finally I took the $150 that my ex-husband gave me, and I gave in, and I went ahead and got us a hotel room because I didn't want my children sleeping in a cold car another night. We just couldn't do that. My daughter had asthma and all kinds of stuff, and I couldn't take a chance. She had almost died when she was a little baby, so no, didn't want to take a chance. So we stayed in the hotel that night, and I got on my knees, and I didn't know that I believed in anything, frankly. But I got on my knees and I said, after my babies went to sleep, and I said, if there's a God, remember, I didn't have any belief in much of anything. There were reasons for that, too. But boy, I wanted help bad. I needed help bad. And I got on my knees and I said, if there is a God, please help me raise these babies to adulthood. Please, I beg you. I need help. And maybe I'd never asked for help before. Maybe that's what it was, but this time I did. Well, in a nutshell, I'll tell you what happened. Within 1 month, we had a home. I had a job. And my ex-husband called me up and said, I'll do anything you say if you let me come back. His exact words. Well, my grandma and I talked about it, and she suggested I write down my list of, hey, these things can't happen or we're through. I found a place for us to live that I could handle, I could pay for at the time. Okay? It was great. It was a 3-bedroom townhouse. It was great. It had to be repainted. It had to be cleaned up. That was it. I had to come up with quite a bit of money to get into it. But, no, we didn't own it. It's a kind of strange situation how it worked. But I managed it. I managed it. You know, I had help, and I didn't even realize it. Now, my children, my sister offered to take my children for me, and the 2 days off that I had, I'd go drive out and see my babies. They were 2 hours away. I'd drive out and I'd spend the night with them, and they would sleep with me because they were scared. They had never been away from their mother this long, and they were scared to death. And here's the good news. By the time my little girl celebrated her 2nd birthday, and I have a picture of it, we were in our new home, sitting on the front porch. She and Mama were sitting there. I had my arm around her. And she was smiling, and I was smiling. My little 2-year-old. We had a new life. Now, unfortunately, the beatings that my second husband was doing started up again. Now, I'm laughing about it because today I can't. You know, he was different than the other guy. I gotta be honest. The other guy was seriously trying to kill me. He didn't make any bones about it. That's what he was going to do. And my second husband, no, he didn't really want to kill me. He just got so frustrated he didn't know how to handle me. Okay? And sometimes he'd just do things like throw the kitchen table at me. That's when the kids were upstairs, supposed to be in bed. He would do most of the stuff, almost all of it, when he didn't think the children knew. Well, that's where he was wrong. The children did know. I lived another 5 or 6 years with this man. I did everything I could to keep us in a marriage. I didn't know what else to do, but I did try to keep us in that marriage. Now, I cared about him because he was the father of my children, 2 of my children, but I knew I did not love him the way that I used to. That was over. And we had a lot of difficulties. But when I started going to school, things changed. A lot. I felt good about me. I was making straight A's. There were a few classes that I didn't make straight A's. Got a B in. I'm sorry. Calc 1 was one of them. I felt like I missed a class in between the 2 classes that you take, and then you go into calculus. But no, I didn't. And most people don't even do that good. But I had 3 jobs at school, and it was great. It really was. And my husband, at that point in time, he was had a pretty good job, and he was making plenty of money to support us in our lives. And I kept us on a budget, and as long as I did that, we were in good shape. Now, when we split up, he had perfect credit, and so did I. That's how good I got us on that budget. Okay, now the reason I'm telling you all this is because I want you to know what my life was like, what my children lived through for a while. My son Matt, who passed away, he was like, what was it, 10 years old when I split up with his dad. Now by then, he understood. He really did. He knew what his father had been doing to me, and he was angry. He was really angry. And he was really happy when we were not with his father. In fact, my son was the happiest when it was just me, Rachel, and him. That was the happiest times of his life. And I wish I had really truly realized that, so I could have kept it that way. Because I made enough money. There wasn't any issue with that. Everything was great. We got a home, our house. I always had a new car. Every 2 years, 2 or 3 years, I'd trade the car in. And we'd always have a very nice car, usually a very fast car. But the point was, my children lived a good life because I gave it to them. I didn't want them to live bad lives. I didn't want them to be embarrassed when they went to school, and they weren't. And every year before, right before school started, it would be, okay, clothes buying time, and they knew it. We'd do the same thing every single year. And I didn't force my children to wear what I thought they should wear. Never. I let my children, I let them be who they were. I never ever forced them to do that. And a lot of times during the summer, they would go out to their grandparents and spend like 2 or 3 weeks out there with them. And that way they knew their grandparents. It was important. And I was willing to do it with their other grandparents, but their other grandparents were older. And they said they didn't think they could handle it. Well, I don't think they understood that my children were could very much take care of themselves if they had to. They just didn't realize that. But that was all right. Everything was okay. Our lives weren't perfect, but they weren't bad. They were good. Okay? Now I'm telling you all this because I want you to know what my son's early life was like and what his mother went through. After my second husband, I never ever got involved with a man that beat me. Not ever. In fact, I decided to bodybuild And that's probably why I still have quite a bit of muscle built up. I really do. Because I was still pushing weights even after a lot of the operations they did on me. I didn't follow the rules. I wanted to make sure I could continue to take care of myself. Well, I probably hurt myself when I did that, but anyway. Matt is everything to me. Well, all my children are, frankly. Matt was really a special kid, though. I mean, he was an amazing child. Absolutely amazing. When they told us he had cerebral palsy, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I knew deep in my heart something was wrong with him, but cerebral palsy? And I was familiar with it because my aunt had it. She was my blood. And she had it really bad. I mean, really bad. But you know, she never let it stop her. Not ever. She got married. She had 2 children. She worked when she was younger. She never let it stop her. And she never went to a nursing home. Never. None of us ever want to do that. Not any of us. But sadly, my mother is in a nursing home because there's no other way to take care of her. She has Alzheimer's and she has heart disease. And my parents, my dad can't do it at all. And my sisters who live in, 2 of them who live in Chicago, they can't do it at all. They tried. One of them did. Didn't work out. And they had to put her in the nursing home. They go there every single day. And every Saturday, she calls me through my dad. My dad calls me. And I talk to my mother. Because I'm never going to see her again. I am too ill to take any kind of drive. I can't fly in any planes. I had a brain aneurysm. I have metal from head to bottom of my spine. There's no way in God's green earth they will let me fly on an airplane. Never. I guess I don't really want to now anyway. Well, that's it. I was going to get into some other stuff today, but I needed to tell you all about myself. You need to know a little bit about my background. When I talk to you about this spiritual stuff, you need to know that I was a scientist for years. And I had some amazing things happen to me. And I wanted you to know a little bit about them. That's about 1/5 of what's happened to me. But I wanted you to know a little bit about it. I love you.